New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Why, hello, it's me, yes, me, Bonnie Gonzalez, your doula for grief. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And before I launch into my usual dialogue about loss and grief and all of my background credentials, I just want to start this show today. I want to start it in gratitude. And I just want to thank New Thought Media Network for allowing me the platform to speak on a very difficult subject. And not only New Thought Media Network, but I would love to thank my producer, Joe Rosenberg, who without Joe, there would be no Doula for Grief. There would be no Bonnie. And Joe is here faithfully with me every week, and we start to prepare a few days before. So he's just always on 24/7. I can call him, I can ask questions. He's just always there for me, supporting me. So I just want to give a big shout out to New Thought Media Network, a shout of gratitude, and I want to give an even more abundant, heartfelt gratitude to Joe, who is just the producer extraordinaire, producer numero uno. So thank you, Joe, for being here and being behind the scenes. And thank you for making it happen every week. So with those accolades in place and with that show of gratitude, okay, a little bit about me. I am, as I said, Bonnie Gonzalez. That hasn't changed in the last 30 seconds. And I am a grief coach. I'm a registered nurse. I'm a religious science practitioner and a licensed soul collage facilitator. And my favorite thing of being that I am is that I am a human being right here on the planet with you during these truly auspicious times, helping to navigate the choppy waters of grief. And I'm just here every week to really start to move that needle on demystifying grief. Bringing grief out of those shadows that we hide from, or the grief that's the elephant in the room that we don't acknowledge. And my job is, not even job, my mission, my vow is to bring grief into our everyday conversation. And I learned something new every day. The other day, I was at a meeting with some other people that are truly interested in grief and death and dying. And the subject came up, and someone's, because we were talking about Death Cafe. I think I've mentioned that before. It's an organization that has local chapters that discuss death and dying. And it's not even death and dying, but it's death. It's like, what's your thought on death? And the tagline, I love it. It's like, talking about death won't kill you. Yes, talking about death won't kill you. And the subject came up that one of the participants said, we are discussing the second most not talked about thing in our cultures. And it's like the second most thing. And she said, yes, it's death. And I thought death was the number one. And this person said, no, grief is the number one subject that is not talked about in our culture. And I just thought, how, how in gratitude I am for New Thought Media, allowing me to talk about a subject that people do not want to discuss, and that is grief. So, and the owner of the station is Reverend Robert Brzezinski. So thank you. So with that said, we are really discussing a subject that does not get talked about. And if this is your first time joining me, I just want to say welcome and know that you've come to the right place to start your journey of healing from grief. And if you're returning, I'm just so glad we have that relationship that you tune in again to find out what the subject is today and what we're talking about. So thank you to all that are watching now and whenever you want, whenever you watch. And whenever you watch, you can always add a comment, and I will definitely pay attention to that. So with that, let me just start out by really defining loss and grief. Or grief is caused by loss. Loss is what we experience, and grief is what we feel. And then loss gets defined as any expected or unexpected occurrence where you can't go back to the way things were before. And of course, that is death. Death is the biggest grief death is the biggest loss we will ever experience in our lives, in our human existence. The death of a loved one, friend, family. That is the biggest. But we also have divorce, a diagnosis, a geographical move, a natural disaster. Also such things as birth of a child, puberty, aging, graduation, job promotion. Those all put us in a state of loss, which can then in turn lead to grief. And then grief is defined as that collection of normal, natural emotions that follow a loss. And they can include sadness, anger, but can also include numbness, confusion, guilt, anxiety, and joy. So, as I said before, I can assure you that you've come to the right place to start your journey of befriending grief. And by starting your personal journey to befriending grief, we become guides to allow others to start their own personal journey. And that is how we heal, one by one, healing together. And if you didn't know, grief's superpower is healing. That is how we heal from our grief. We heal from our grief by leaning into our grief, by really feeling it. And knowing that each time that we lean in a little bit, it becomes a little bit less emotionally intensified, little by little, until we are then healed from our grief. And our grief really never completely goes away. We just learn how to move forward with that grief. And yes, when you're in that initial phase of grief, that I call it deer in the headlights, the shock, the overwhelming, that does lessen with time. That does lessen with time. And then we move forward with the healing and the transformative power of grief. So I will stop there with my sharing around grief, but just to know that grief is definitely a human experience and one not to be shied away from. Grief can hide out in our bodies. Unresolved grief can hide out in our bodies. And that's another show, okay? But today we have just, a really sensitive theme. And today our theme is life after losing a loved one to suicide. Yes, life after losing a loved one to suicide. And I just want you to know that suicide is one of those things that touches all cultures. And I don't know if you know this, an estimated 703,000 people die by suicide worldwide each year. Over 1 in every 100 deaths in 2019 was the result of suicide. Take a minute to just absorb that impact of how many people, or the impact of having that many people die from suicide. And last year in the US, and I know this is an international program, it gets broadcast all over the world, but in the US alone, there were more than 50,000 Americans died by suicide. 50,000. And that has been the highest record it's the highest number since they've been keeping the record. The US Surgeon General has even said that mental health is the defining health crisis of our time. The most defining health crisis of our times. So just absorbing that. And when we start to think about how many people that is that take their own life every year, think about how many families are impacted, how many friends, how many acquaintances. It's something we cannot get away from. We cannot get away from suicide. And so today, as I said, our theme is life after losing a loved one to suicide. And so I have a guest that has said yes, and I just applaud her courageousness for saying yes to come on and to sharing her experience. And so my special guest today is Trina Ramsey. She's a speaker, author, executive life coach, the CEO and president of Just Do You Institute. And most importantly of all, she's a beloved good friend. So welcome to the program today, Trina Ramsey.
Bonnie.
And there's a little circling going on. So there she is.
Bonnie, thank you so much.
Oh, yes,
Thanks
Trina.
for having me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for your yes to come on and to sharing such a really sensitive and personal and intimate your own life experience around losing a loved one to suicide. So thank you, Trina.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you for creating this space and for doing what you do. It's such important work, and you know what you said about the statistics. Not a lot of us are brave enough to be doing this work on a day-to-day basis. So I know what a caring person you are, and that this is what you're built for. So we appreciate you.
Yeah, Trina, I'm going to say that's my tagline, but then you're built for this if you're sharing it. And I know that you have some work in progress, even around you're continuing your own healing. So I'll let you tell share with us your story.
Yeah,
around losing a loved one.
Yeah. So I lost my mom when I was 14 years old. She was a single mom. I was the oldest of three. I have twin sisters who are 7 years younger than me.
Oh.
And my mom was battling mental health issues. So she was diagnosed as bipolar and schizophrenic. And yeah, it's a hard combination. And you know, so she was in and out of employment, and we lived with our grandmother for much of the time because of that. And you know, so she was hospitalized several times, and she did have several attempts, but when I was 14 is when she succeeded. And
so sorry.
Yeah, she was 35.
Oh, Trina is such a young woman.
Yeah.
Such a young woman.
Yeah.
And your mom's name?
Yvonne.
Yvonne
Troutman Bradley. She would have been, she was 20 years older than me, so she would have been 77 had she lived.
Oh, yes. Young. Yeah. Trina. Yeah.
So, I can share a little bit more. It's when I was about 12, she actually shared her diagnosis with me.
That's a lot to hear for a 12-year-old.
Yes, I was, I was already like big sis. I was, helping with my sister's hair and cooking and things like that. And, bipolar, you have the highs and lows. And for her,
Mhm.
her manic was fun mom. So
Okay. Okay.
let us jump on the beds. There was one time she painted the bathroom this Pepto-Bismol pink.
Wow.
Because she was also, manic, she didn't clean it up and cap everything. And so my sisters got into it. They were like 2. And
Oh
so
my goodness.
they looked like little, Teletubbies running around.
The little pink girls.
we
Oh
had
my
to,
goodness.
we had to put them in a bath and clean them up. And it's interesting because once I found out the diagnosis, then I no longer saw fun mom as fun mom. It put me into like, oh, this is a problem. I have to fix it. I have to stand, So, the impact for me was a lifelong kind of relationship with Superwoman. And I was mini mom. And so, and even after she passed, unfortunately, we lost our grandmother 4 months later.
Oh, that's a double.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, Trina.
Yeah.
Feels like your childhood came to an end very early. I mean,
Yes.
12. It sounds like
very much.
Do you remember before you knew her diagnosis? Was there any concern? I mean, you're just a 12-year-old. You can't take on any responsibility at 12 other than being 12.
Right.
Do you remember having any concern before that, before she
Oh, yeah.
shared?
I mean, it was very obvious because her swings were so hard. And like I said, she had multiple attempts that I had, been aware of. And so she'd go into the hospital. And back then in the 70s and early 80s, the treatments were very harsh. She had heart shock therapy and, very strong medicines. And she explained to me that she didn't, and people to this day have, they struggle with adhering to the medications.
Yes, the medication, the regime is just people don't want to take those medications.
Yeah. So I ended up writing in this book that I'm working on a vignette that I remember. She was a chain smoker. And I remember she would go out on the back porch and she would just sit and smoke and just kind of like stare off. This is when she was kind of like struggling. And I remember sitting with her and I ended up writing kind of like almost like a fictionalized version of that moment, where I was actually kind of tuning into her and tuning into
her energy.
What she would be saying or thinking, I didn't prepare or bring any of my writing with me. But I did as I've started to decide to write the book.
Yes.
Started to reframe my relationship to the grief. And that's a little bit more of a story. So we can kind of come back to that. Yeah.
Right. And I was gonna say, and you said you lost your mom when you were 14. So I'm just thinking back to that time in our own history and understanding of mental illness. There's such a big stigma.
Very much.
I mean, even now, we think we're so evolved, but can you speak to that a little bit? Or
absolutely.
With grandma's reactions and that kind of thing?
Yeah. So, there was a time when I got into a fight because someone called my mom crazy. There was, we had, I grew up in the project. It was like the townhouse type projects. Very close.
And what city? What city were you in?
Johnstown, Pennsylvania, which is in Western Pennsylvania, a little bit east of Pittsburgh, about an hour east of Pittsburgh. So people knew each other. Everybody basically knew everybody's business kind of thing,
Yeah, I know small towns.
Also community, there's a much more community than what we have today. My grandmother, she was an alcoholic. And
Oh, no, Trina.
and I do
Wow.
believe, my mom was diagnosed in her 20s. And she got married. She had my twin sisters, but my grandmother was our home base. She was the strength, and I do believe that she was self-medicating because she was struggling with,
Right.
the way the world had turned out for them. And I will say, talk about the stigma. I myself carried a lot of shame for years. For
Yes.
years. And my mom actually ended up in the hospital for months, and she died from a stroke. So I got to tell people she died from a stroke, and I would not engage around the mental health stuff. I would not engage around suicide. I just tried to like bury it and act like it didn't happen, because, a stroke is like, that's more palatable and it doesn't have stigma, right? And so I, like, up until in my 40s, I wasn't about it. I couldn't.
Well, right. I just want to get clear. I was a little bit confused. You said your mom took her life by suicide, but then she was in the hospital with a stroke. I'm sorry.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
She jumped off a bridge.
Oh, but this was a story that you made saying that she died from a stroke.
Right. So she jumped. So there were several attempts. And then the last one, she jumped off the bridge and broke, like she was in traction. She was in a hospital.
I see.
For months.
I see. Oh, I see. I see.
The impetus was the suicide attempt.
Yeah.
She survived it for years. Not for years, for, let's see, I think it was August, and then she passed in January. So like I said, I got to say that she died from a stroke, and I got to like divorce myself from all the rest of it. And
versus saying, that this was suicide. And I so hear you, and I know that's so painful. So again, like I said, I thank you for sharing. If there's anything that you would prefer not to share, that's quite understandable. Even if I ask the question,
no,
I so appreciate that. And it looks like we have a comment from Wayne. Souls that suicide go into healing time. Okay, Wayne. Yeah. Healing time. Thank you. Wayne. Yeah, Wayne's in Canada. I just wanted to really just pause there when you talked about being able to have a story that felt better. If you want to say better, how could anything be better? You've lost your mom. It doesn't even matter what or how.
Right.
Tell me, because at 14, we just don't have any concept of what's going on. Our frontal cortex is not developed, and we can't even make heads or tails of cause and effect. At 14, was there anybody, Trina, that did offer you support?
I was like so sure I was going to get through this without crying, but
it's okay. If you need to take a break,
no, I'm good. I'm good.
I can cry with you,
because this is. I'm so grateful. We have a huge extended family, and my grandmother was one of 7, and 2 of her sisters, the daughters, were best friends. So my cousin Annette and my cousin Nita and my mother were all the same age. They were all born the same year, and they swooped in. And then we also had family on my stepfather's side, and basically they all kind of surrounded us and really made sure that we were not going to get lost in this system. So unfortunately, we did end up in separate households because it's hard when people have, to take in children. But I ended up going to Detroit to live with my cousin Annette. And then I became the oldest, and she had 4 kids.
Oh,
took in a 5th.
Oh, and she took in one more. Now, were you older than those 4 kids?
I was the oldest of all. And
I can see a pattern here.
yes, ironically, her youngest are also twins. So I actually ended up helping to raise 2 sets of twins, which also made me, even though I love my cousins, I love my sisters, but when I was pregnant, I was like, please don't let me have twins. God, I've had enough twins in my life.
Yeah, spare me. But I was going to ask too. Well, let's see. Wayne has another comment, and I think it's really, for me, it sounds really sweet when he said that souls that commit suicide go into healing time, and he says healing time on the other side.
Yeah.
Eternal progress opens to every soul. Wayne, thank you for that. Those words of
that's beautiful.
Of being consoling here. Thank you. And I was going to ask, so you did get separated from your sisters. Was there a point that you were reunited with them?
Yeah. I mean, with
one
no, not really, because I was 7 years older. So I was in I was in 9th grade. I was able to finish college. And then we all of us ended up going to college. But our families, like, they would come visit me on campus. I went to school in Pittsburgh. They were in Harrisburg. They came with some other family members to my high school graduation in Detroit. I actually had this dream of getting out and finishing raising them. It was just really highly over, like, parentified, overly developed sense of responsibility that I had that was not realistic.
Yeah, I was just going to ask too. I'm just trying to think how I want to phrase this. Some common issues maybe that come up from children whose parent may have taken their own life. The first thing I think, in so many people that do have loved ones that take their own life, is that sense of guilt. And, I wonder what I could have done. Did any of those things come up, Trina, for you? Or were you just too young to go in that direction?
Yeah, I never felt guilt. I never felt guilt. I just felt this, this ache for years. I would get mad at myself so my sisters and I, there's the death anniversary, there's her birthday, and there's Mother's Day. And so if I somehow went through one of those milestones without, like, falling apart or whatever, then I would, like, get mad at myself, like I wasn't being a dutiful
Yeah,
daughter.
you weren't loving enough. You didn't love your mom enough. You should be always feeling, yes. That's common with grief, especially with losing a loved one. Sometimes people feel like they need to continue to grieve forever to show their depth of love.
Yeah.
That if you're over this, quote unquote, we know there's no such thing as being over.
Exactly.
But if you're feeling good, if you're happy, so many people fall into guilt there.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you were aware of that.
Yes. And I also, it took me a long time, and I'm, in my coaching journey, I've done a lot of work, when you grow as coaches, you take in a lot, and you're on your own healing party. I mean, your own healing, it is a party sometimes, but your own.
It can be a party. It all depends on how you want to hold it. A pity party or a joyous party. Your choice. Yes, choice.
Choice
Is yours.
Exactly. But it was somewhere around when I was 48 that I first wrote about it. I was included in a book that was called Stuff I Never Told. And there's a subtitle that says something about the shadow of shame. I can't, it's not in mind right now. It was the first time I wrote about my mother's passing, and it cracked me open. It was a very painful process, but it also created this opening for me to start to actually be able to have conversations. And then when I spoke at a conference the I Am Woman conference by my mentor, Sylvia High, in I want to say that was 2018. I was on a panel about mental health. And I fell apart on the stage. Like I was able to get the message across, but people were giving me tissues and everything. And
people want to help, Trina.
Yeah.
People want to help. It's a truly innate thing.
Yeah.
When we see someone in emotional pain, we want to help.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I had two people come up, and this is what I found now that I have found my voice and been able to start to have conversations. The commonality is there. So I had people come up to me after the talk, and like, I want to tell you about my sister. I want to tell you about my niece, because again, that was pre-pandemic. I do believe that the pandemic and the amount of pain that people were under in the pandemic has helped us to be more accepting and open around mental health issues and around suicide, but we still have a ways to go. There certainly is still stigma, but there is more acceptance to talk about our own pain and our own journey, and things like getting therapy and taking meds. People are able to talk about these things and not hide them the way our family did.
Right. And I still feel though we have a long way to go, but at least you're starting to make the inroad. Just us sitting here today is another way. You're sharing your story on stage is another way. And I want to bring it back to even you now, versus the 14-year-old who was just trying to survive a horrific, painful experience in her life. Do you feel now, do you ever have any fears around maybe your own mental health? It's like, wow, could this happen to me? Your grandma, your mom, it's like, can you speak to that maybe a little bit?
Oh yeah. I mean, because that these issues can be hereditary, right? And so I have I've gone through therapy myself several times. Haven't had any strong indicators, but one of my twin sisters has had issues with mental health herself. And then during the pandemic, my son went through some challenges, and that was the piece that it messed me up. It messed me up because I was almost putting my mother's history on him in a way that was not healthy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, I know what you mean, but we're human. Emotions, things come up for us.
Yeah.
Come up for us.
He's doing well now, thank God. He lives. He's moved back to Virginia. He's in another space, living on his own with our cat. I'm in Northern California.
That's another loss, the cat. The son going, the cat going.
He got the cat.
Yeah.
And I did.
And I was just going to ask too, looking at this and looking at that 14-year-old appreciating the help that the family, the support and love that the family bestowed on you, just wrapping you in that kind of love. Is there anything that, I could ask it in two ways. What was the most helpful thing? And the other question, you can choose, which you can answer both, but you can choose the order. What do you wish that someone had said or done that didn't happen? With the hindsight now, thinking of a 14-year-old, what do you wish could have happened?
Well, I'll start with the first. I don't know if I even have an answer for the second.
Okay.
Our family, they're part of the reason I'm known for my positivity. I'm known for my warmth. I've actually
yes you are.
settings been accused of being too soft and things of that nature, but it's because my family, I learned what love looks like. And I learned not, like demonstratively what love feels like when you know that people are there for you. Um, I'm not sure what my life would look like if we didn't have that value in our family, if we didn't have that connectedness that continues to this day. Um, I think the only thing that I could say that to your second question is there was also this unshakable faith in me.
In yourself.
I was the first in our family to go to college. I was told, I spoke at a conference about a week ago, and I was talking about how I was told, "Oh, you can be anything. You can be the president of the United States." And, so I laughed and I'm like, don't want that job. But
You can go on to do great things. Let's put it that way.
yes, and I'm so grateful because I have become like a doer and an achiever, and I've really have had a good career and a good life. And if anything, I think that I also got anchored in there the need to prove, the need to earn my way, the need to prove that I wasn't a statistic and wasn't broken. And so I think that part of what I dealt with from an early age and into much of my adulthood was this kind of overachiever, superwoman trope that was not healthy. And that's part of what my messaging is now as a coach, is that we can live and we can, accept our humanity, that we can grow and we can be vulnerable and we can show, our weaknesses and trust that there are people there to support, which is something that, I just felt like, well, if all these people believed in me, then I have to, show you that option, that kind of a thing. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't let them down. You can't
Exactly.
let them down, oh my goodness. Kind of like, and this is no comparison, but being what is it called? Children of alcoholic parents or whatever. It just means having parents that emotionally are not available and falling into that. And I know I've fallen into that, being overly responsible.
Yeah.
You got to make everybody else happy. You've got to live up to everybody else's expectation. And then denying what it is that you may want personally.
Exactly.
And it's even a little bit more insidious, not just not allowing yourself to have what you want, but not even knowing what it is that you want.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like you were putting everybody else first, going off to help raise the other kids with your aunt, people believing in you, having to show that without getting that nurturing to say, Trina, what do you want?
Yeah.
So, so I'll let you go ahead. You said that you didn't know if you had an answer.
Well, that was the closest. It was the kind of like that the seed being planted of achieverness and being, needing to live it up to that at all costs.
Right.
And it certainly, I look back, it served me well. I've done well in life. I'm thriving. I've kind of beat God, so to speak, or whatever. But there was some times when I was struggling emotionally, and because I had taken on too much, and I didn't know how to say no. I didn't know how to have boundaries for myself. Even in my my first marriage, and with my kids as they got older.
It just manifests itself in so many different ways. Do you remember having any anger at all, Trina? I know you said there was no guilt around your mother.
Yeah, I think so. I think it was my sister and I talk about this sometimes. It was just, why'd you leave us?
Yeah, that.
And why didn't you want to stay? Because I do have very, one of the things I'm blessed with, because I was older, I do have fond memories of my mother.
Oh, you got the joy of that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, she was brilliant. I know, again, our community was very small, and I am still connected on Facebook with some folks who grew up with her. And so when I post things,
Mhm.
"Oh, she was so smart. She was, but I, got all my nerdiness from her. Um, you know,
You're
uh,
nerdy. It's
yes, yes. And also, she used to sing little ditties. She used to make up little songs while she was cooking, and things like that. So I have those fond memories of her. So I had enough to know what I was missing, if that
right.
makes sense. Yeah.
I was going to ask, since you're making her a person here, not just somebody that breezed through your life, what is your fondest memory of
Mm,
Yvonne? Yeah, what story would you like us to hear?
yeah.
Yvonne
Oh,
as a person,
yes,
yeah.
yes. Um, she liked to cook.
Mm.
She would make these little songs that would go along with her cooking.
Oh,
She also had a beautiful voice, and my stepfather was in a band, and so they ended up not being together for a very long time, which brought us back to grandma's house again. But
okay.
she would sing. She would sing with his band, and they would, practice in different people's basements. And so I got to see her sing with them. And do you remember the song "What's It All About"?
Alf.
Alvin. I
Mm.
do remember her singing
Oh,
that song in particular.
that is sweet. That is sweet. Yeah. So Alfie. Um, and so it sounds like you got a lot of your talents from your mom. You would talk about nerdiness, because nerdiness for me could be a good thing.
It is a
Right?
good thing. I'm proud of it.
Yeah. It's, you got the glasses to prove it, huh? No, no. You look beautiful. You look beautiful, stunning. Um, but you attribute your writing skills to your mom?
I don't know so much about writing, but okay, so she would the games that we played were all like brainy kind of games,
Oh,
cribbage,
oh, I couldn't play. Yes, okay. She made you play
tri-
cribbage.
triominoes. Did you ever play
Uh,
triominoes? It's
we
like
were good.
the dominoes with three sides instead of two.
No,
Uh,
we were a little impoverished, Trina. We didn't have board games. We were trying to keep my dad was trying to keep food on the table. What's that expression? Where you kids better go outside and play. That was
yeah.
yeah. So she taught you board game. Well, there is an age difference between us as well, Trina.
Yeah, yeah, that's true too. But yeah, so and I'm very competitive with stuff like that.
Oh
Um,
my gosh,
I
really?
love jigsaw puzzles. Now, I will shout out my fiance, Keith. I don't even
Yeah.
know if I told you this story, Bonnie. He actually, I got back into doing jigsaw puzzles, and he took my mother's high school graduation picture and
Wow.
blowed it up into a puzzle, 1,000
Oh
piece
my
puzzle.
gosh.
I know you're watching at some point. A
Oh,
1,000 puzzle, which has
well,
been one of
Keith.
the most challenging. Like, I'm at the 80% mark, and it's all hair, and it's all just dark.
Oh my gosh.
And but it was such a loving gesture, and
Oh,
I got to like be with her
yeah.
face and her skin tone and the dress she's wearing. And it's one of the only formal pictures that we have of her. So my sisters and I use it a lot, and it's
Wow.
also just an opportunity for me to kind of be with her, and in
Yeah.
a fun way.
I was going to say, what a loving gesture from Keith to have done that.
Yeah.
And I love making stories, right? So I can just see you doing the jigsaw puzzle and writing. As you fill in more of your mom, more stories come to write. So this is like your muse or your inspiration. So thank you, Keith. And if anybody is ever listening and want to do a picture of me, only make it a 40-piece puzzle. My attention span, it would.
Yeah, 1,000. That's no joke. That's no joke.
Really. Adventurous? No, not adventurous is the word. I'm looking for.
Challenging.
No, it's another word. It means to really have high aspirations for someone. It'll come. It'll come. But I'm glad you're enjoying that. And I that's what I love about talking with people who have lost their loved one to suicide, to help them remember that they were a person. Because with our crazy society of putting stigmas on things, and that's all you'll remember. Yeah. But really, to know that this is a person, And as I said, in the opening, giving statistics, which I don't like, because there's no way you can really capture how many people are affected. Because when you take that number, you think about family, you think about friends, a partner, a coworker. There are lots of people.
It's a ripple. Yeah.
That's a ripple effect. And when you talked about asking your mom why did that happen? I think that's a really common question. A really common question. And I had a friend just recently, I haven't seen her in years, but I just had heard that she had taken her life. And even now, my biggest question was why?
Yeah.
So what I did, I sat and I wrote her a letter about all the good times and how I remembered her and how she loved her kids and how we could laugh so hard together. In my closing statement, I did ask her that question, why?
Yeah.
And with my style of journaling is then to allow that person to respond.
Yeah.
And yes, I'll let you go, then I'll go. If you've done that.
No, I have. Yeah.
Well, then I'll share it. Then I want to hear yours. And I got back from her a really deep insight into depression that I had never thought of. I had never, ever. So that's why I do believe that answer came from her, because I wrote with love and with intention in my heart. And it was just, she talked about how it's this darkness that just overcomes you and you can't get out of it. It's like, it's a heaviness. It's like being buried alive. So it was quite vivid for me, which brought for me a sense of understanding to my why. Now, I'm sure it's different when it's your mother. So if you feel that you want to answer that.
Yeah. So as part of, we alluded to this, I'm writing another book. I have written a book more in the coaching space, but I'm working on my family memoir, and I've picked it up and put it down. But it really came to me once I started being able to talk about these things. I started to really see my mother and my grandmother as human, as Black women in America who were dealing with what they were dealing with. And now that I haven't passed my grandmother's age yet. She was only in her late 50s.
Your grandma, wow.
Yeah. So
your adult life without them.
Exactly. And so now that I've lived some and I've been through some things and understand the challenges and what it takes to be a Black woman in America, and certainly I'm not dealing with any of the overt racism, the economic challenges that they were dealing with. And so I can see them more lovingly and actually understand where I was judging. I was judging in the past. I was holding, I can say this now, I was holding them both as weak. I was, it was, like when I think about it, I was like, well, who are you? You didn't know. But now this is a way for me to reconcile
Mm-hmm.
and to
Mm-hmm.
highlight my mother's brilliance, her talents, my grandmother's tenacity, and the love that she showed just by being there, being that place that we could come back to when trouble,
Yeah.
she was always there and she cared so much. And,
Mm.
so it has allowed me, and part of one of the things I did it audibly. I went and did
Oh,
voice
okay.
recorder.
Recorded.
Yeah.
Recorded. Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
And then I went back and like journaled what I heard, but I didn't ask the question why. I just asked what they wanted to tell me.
Oh,
And
I love that. I love that. Oh, Trina, I love that. What do you want me to know?
yep.
Kind of inquiry.
Yep.
And what was your grandmother's name?
Rosetta Troutman.
So Rosetta and Yvonne
Yep. Yep.
have still been with you all of your life, and
They have. And I can tell, I can feel it. Yeah. There was a time, they don't do it as much anymore, but when my kids were growing up, both of them, my mother had this kind of upside down smile. She smiled and the corners of her mouth would go down. And I
Oh,
said, my kids do it repeatedly.
so they're on to your kids. To your son and daughter, both your son and your daughter both do that. Oh my gosh, smiling that way.
Yeah.
That's sweet. That's sweet, Trina. Believe it or not, Trina, we're getting close to quitting time. I don't know where the time goes. I always say I'm going to take a commercial break, but that never happens. And Wayne has just been chatting here in the chat. Let me just go through just a few of them. I'm not going to go through everything. I love you, Wayne. Thank you for being here. He just says that we're stars and we're beautiful, we're violet, and he says Cosmic Christ likes you. But Wayne, I've got one better. Cosmic Christ loves you. loves Wayne as well. And it's golden. Oh, and Wayne said it's veal. He likes veal, so it must be lunchtime where Wayne from Christ. You're having holy veal. Thank you, Wayne, for being out there and for listening. And because we're getting close to the hour, I just want to go through a few things. I just want to ask Trina, any parting words, anything that you'd like to share with our audience, with anyone who has lost a loved one to suicide, or just dealing with moving through life.
Yeah.
After suicide.
Yeah. Thank you for putting up the resources here. It's one of the things that I try to do whenever I'm writing or blogging about this topic. I believe that it's so important, and also speaking to people who may be dealing with their own mental health issues right now, that it's not, it doesn't make you weak to get help. It's help to get that support that you need. And I also want to, and I should have mentioned this earlier, Bonnie, there's an organization that was really helpful for me when I was with my son's issue. It's called NAMI, National Association on Mental Illness, NAMI.org. And they actually convene conferences, but they also have support groups. I was part of a support group during a pandemic of people who are dealing with mental health among their family members, as well as people who were the person who was having a first person, who was going through the mental health crisis. But it was so helpful for me to not, be in it alone. My first meeting, I just cried the entire time, because there's this sense of, okay, there's more people, but then you also realize that there are other people that were dealing with even more challenging issues than what I was dealing with. So it's really good to know that there are folks that are out there to be able to support. And it's never too late to heal. It took me decades, but it's never too
late to heal. Wow, Trina, thank you so much, and thanks for that info. I sent a text. Maybe you can put up. It's NAMI. Is it .org?
.org. Yes, it's a nonprofit.
So I put a comment in the comment box if you see that. Yes, and I've heard of that organization before, some years ago. It's been quite some, maybe 10 years ago. Sounds like it's been around.
Yeah, it's been around. They have chapters.
And I heard about it through my Spanish teacher, and I think there's a bilingual aspect to it because she's the one that was telling me about it, and she was sharing the information about it. And I want to add Wayne's last comment. Wayne says to be kind. Oh, there you go. Thanks, Joe. Yeah. Nami, Nami. And Wayne's last comment goes so far. His last comment is be kind.
Yes.
Yeah. I
Can
love
I add that?
Yes.
Including be kind to yourself.
Oh, yes. Start with you first and then let it spread out. What is that? Giving from your excess, not from your deficit. So if you're kind to you, you have enough kindness to share with others. So, Trina, thank you. Oh, Trina, the word came to me, ambitious, with that purple.
Yes.
That's quite ambitious.
Yes.
The word always escapes me, and it takes me a while to bring it back. Oh, and Trina, we're going to close, but I want to ask you if you can stick around after the show. Can you stay back?
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, Trina, this has just been such a delight. I don't want to use the word delight. I want to say this has been so tremendously informative, and bringing it to so many people shy away from talking about subjects like this because they feel it's going to be heavy, you're going to get dragged down, you're going to be just so depressed. That's okay. But to see that we can hold both the joy, the laughter with Yvonne, that you can hold both. You can hold the sadness of losing them, but you can also hold the joy that they did give to life.
Absolutely.
So thank you for showing that you don't have to shy away from it. And to know that if we're suppressing any emotion around that sadness, that we're also suppressing the joy that we can feel, the joy and the happiness. So we need both. It's like the yin and the yang circle. We need both. They complement each other. And so for that, I just applaud you. I just applaud you. Keep sharing your story. And please promise me that once the book is out, you will come back and we will discuss Yvonne again.
Yes, I would love to. Yeah.
With the new book. And I know you have another book. Would you share the title of your other book? And if you have it, I should have had you read something from your book. Well, this just means, Trina, there's more to come, part 2.
It's called Just Do You, A Declaration of Independence from Guilt, Obligation, and Shame.
Yes. And that Trina does have her organization, Just Do You Institute. And that is also, I think we put that up in the contact information, Just Do You Institute, that you can find there. And
in that blog there is, I decided to go on Medium to share my journey with writing. So I write quite a bit about my mother and my grandmother and kind of just my journey and mental health issues. And that's what that blog is, on Medium as well.
And Wayne is including us in a circle of love, ever expanding.
Thank you, Wayne. Thank you.
Ever expanding. And we're going to bring the show to a close now, but I don't want to close without saying a big thank you to New Thought Media Network, and to make a donation so that we can continue to have excellent programmings that bring depth, a depth of conversation, and brings understanding and help and hope and healing to our lives. So it's ntmedia.org/donate. Check out some of the wonderful programs that we have on this network. I know tomorrow at this time, poetry, prayer, and I can't remember the last one with Tracy Brown. She's going to be on tomorrow. There's Jim. There you. And practice, yes. And there's Jim Webb, who does a prosperity every Sunday night, the Miracle of Prosperity. We also have my brother Zoe, who's my partner in crime. We have Michael Mangus on Friday nights chat side. So Spiritual Toolkit with Reverend Brock Ford. So just check out the programming here on New Thought Media. And that's Zoe Choice, your creative superpower. So I just want to say thank you to all of you that have joined. Remember, Trina is a coach as well. And I am a grief coach. And you can find me at Bonnie, your doula for grief.com. And I want to close with, I want you right now to go to the mirror. I want you to look yourself in the eye right now and say, what do I need today? What do I need today? And whatever comes up, I want you to honor that. And so until next week, thank you so much for namaste, and I'll see you later.
Namaste.
Namaste. Ciao.
New Thought Radio, music from all your favorite New Thought artists. From Jamie Lula, Karen Drucker, Gary Lynn Floyd, Ricky Byers, Daniel Nahmod, Eddie Watkins Jr., and many, many more. 24/7 New Thought Radio. Positively inspiring.